If recruiting is the lifeblood of a program, then Texas may just be the beating heart of the Sun Devils' rise. One of the key architects of this success is Bryan Carrington, an ace recruiter who also oversees an ascendant group of Sun Devil cornerbacks. And with a talented group of corners on the field and the makings of a very strong 2026 recruiting class off of it, Carrington remains one of the key and most impactful members of Kenny Dillingham's coaching staff. On this episode, Bryan and I discuss the lessons from the title run, a rundown of the 2025 corners, the state of the Texas-to-Tempe pipeline, the keys to roster retention, and so much more. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Bryan Carrington. All right, coach. So obviously there's really no off season for a coach at this level. It's nice to have, the extended season go into January, but then of course with all the recruiting, spring ball coming up, what have the last few months been like for you since coming off the Peach Bowl?
Yeah, nonstop. It seems like not too long after we finished the Peach Bowl, we had to go on the road recruiting. The transfer portal opened up, and then, got a quick maybe a week off as a staff from a long season, and then we had to get right back into it. Spring ball followed. And then right after spring ball, we just hit the road for 4 weeks, combined with, I believe we've had 3 official visit weekends, as well as, the countless cities. I myself have been in, Oakland, Las Vegas, LA, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, multiple times in the past like 4 weeks. So, it's been a little chaotic, but it's worth it. It's all worth it in the end.
And so, yeah, that was my next question. What makes it worth it? Well, obviously it's such a grind, but what are some of the most rewarding aspects of putting in all the work, all the hours that a major college football coach does?
Yeah, building the program, building Coach Dillingham's vision. This is an important year. This is our third recruiting cycle. So this is really going to be, our lifeblood moving forward, the players that we handpick, because like we've said all along, it's not about just acquiring talent. It's about retaining talent. We've done a good job of retaining the players that are on our rosters, especially the ones that choose Arizona State out of high school. So, it's high time here at Arizona State. It's exciting, to be in year 3 and just have, a zealous ambition, a burning fire inside of you to just continue building, this program brick by brick.
So to be in your position, be a college assistant coach at a major college program like Arizona State. You obviously got to love the game. You got to love all the things that go with it. So, what are some of the football things, whether it's schematics, trends, just things that are maybe on or off the field that you nerd out about the most?
I really just teaching, just teaching, instructing. A lot of players in that room. Let's say I got 8 guys on scholarship in that room. All 8 guys don't learn the same way. So just figuring out the guys in my room and seeing which guys are better learning visually, which guys are like hands on, would like to walk through it in person, and just filling out, that room, and just the challenge and really the joy as a coach and our staff is just figuring out how to reach every player in that room, whether, just arming them with as much resources as possible. That's the real joy, is the teaching, the growth, the learning of our scheme, especially when it leads to production on the field. That's a great, it's a great feeling, not only for us, but the players as well.
Heading into this third season now here in Tempe, and of course, Kenny getting his first opportunity a few years ago at his alma mater, and rough first year, obviously tremendous success in year 2. How have you seen Kenny kind of evolve as a coach as he's become, gotten some experience as a head man?
Yeah, I think you evolve as a coach, as far as how, you respond to the experiences and the hands that you're dealt along the way. But to be here now, I mean, Kenny hasn't changed. He's super zealous. He's super animated. You can tell that this is dream job every day. And just to build this program through and see his vision come to life, is pretty much incredible.
He's a very quotable guy. I have worked with him for a few years now. What's your favorite Dillyism? What's one of those Dilly quotes that really kind of sticks with you the most?
If you say what's up to Dilly, he'll say life, and then that'll just get into the whole lifers and everything. But just say what's up, Dilly, and he'll always say life. So that's like one of the things that stand out about Coach Dillingham.
That's funny. That seems to be like the common answer. I asked that question to Zach Swanson yesterday, in fact, and he exact same thing. Life was the answer. So,
Right.
living what he preaches. On the foot, kind of on a similar note, is there a Carringtonism there that you find yourself using, in your day to day, working with your guys?
Ah, from last year, just in the cornerback room, we just say smart, scrappy, and technical. Those are three terms that we will continue to speak, into those guys in that room, and then we're kind of adding to those pillars, this year with taking things to the next level and just creating a standard. So next level and standard, along with being smart, scrappy, and technical, is who we want to be every Saturday in that cornerback room. So those are some coach isms in that room, whether it comes from myself or Coach Walker. Um, you know, those are the pillars you could say of that cornerback room.
Now heading into the season, coming off a Big 12 title run and crown, how do you feel that this team, the guys that so many returning faces on this roster this year, how do you feel this team overall has been handling this success?
Guys are hungry. To me, it's all about the roster. It's all about what those guys in the locker room think, what those guys believe. Because we're not the guys that play on Saturdays. Those guys have a lot of belief in themselves, and they've been saying they want to run it back. So they've created a standard they hold themselves to. So we as coaches have to continue to make sure that we check ourselves and are as high have as high aspirations as our players do.
Now, how do you feel that the program culture, perhaps in lockstep there, has evolved? Since first year, everybody's kind of the coaches are putting in the culture, everybody's trying to get on the same page. But now that it's been around a couple of years, some guys have been there the whole time, and some success now to it. How do you feel the culture is now heading into year three?
I think the culture is at a great place. I feel like the culture and Coach Dillingham's plan upon arrival to now is really flourished and has came to life. We're really keen on the players that we bring into this program. The character evaluation is so much more than just film with Coach Dillingham and the persons, the human beings we bring into this program. But I will say the most unique thing that I think that we have here at Arizona State is we have a lot of fun, but when it comes to the work, we're super competitive. A lot of coaches, a lot of cultures are probably uncomfortable with having as much fun as you see Arizona State having on social media. And that's one of another Dillinghamism is we're going to have fun. We're going to have more fun working harder than anybody in the country. So the fact that we can have as much fun and Coach Dillingham can be in the locker room playing video games with our players, but when we blow that whistle and we're in between those white lines on the practice field, it's competition. That's not only a reflection of the character of the players that we have, it's a reflection of the culture. It's a reflection of the human beings that we're bringing into our program. Without the humans, we can create whatever cultures and standards that we want to have. It can be cliche, but the players have to buy into it. The players have to be ambassadors of our culture. So I would say our culture is at a great place right now because we have passed the torch of our culture to our players, and now they're the ones that wave the flag. They're the ones that police our culture going into year three.
What were some of your key objectives for the cornerbacks and during spring practices, and how do you feel that your group will ultimately manage them?
Yeah, some of objectives, like I said, we're trying to add next level and standards, to our mantra. We want to go into every game and we want to be able to perform at a high level. I feel great about where the room is right now. I feel like we have a lot of experience in that room with Javen and Keith and with the new addition of Nyland Green. But we have some young, promising football players, behind those guys, and Roddy Image and Joseph Smith and Plas Johnson, and as the future also looks bright in that room. So we kind of want to create kind of like a fraternity in that room. We want guys to be smart, scrappy, technical, We want guys to get to the next level. We want to uphold a standard for the cornerback room at Arizona State. You know, when you step on the field against Arizona State, you should feel like you have to play your best because our cornerbacks are going to challenge you day in and day out, snap after snap. You know, so just making sure that we have a next man up philosophy in that room because I feel like guys deserve to play. We'll have it's our job to give them opportunities to play. So right now, I feel like we have guys in that room that have the ability to play on Saturdays. You know, so I'm excited to get to fall camp and see what happens.
Through those 15 spring practices, overall, what did you learn about this year's iteration of the Sun Devil cornerback group?
A lot of competition, to bring back two starters and Keith and Javen and bring a guy that has a lot of college starts under his belt in Nyland Green and then have a promising freshman like Rodney Bimich who got to travel and play in some games and preserve his red shirt, as well as to bring in Joseph Smith as an early enrollee. We feel like that room is kind of becoming a manifestation of what we wanted in and what we visualized that cornerback room to be upon arrival when we got here, in December of 2022. We just have to continue to make sure that iron sharpens iron. We got a lot of guys with a lot of different skill sets and abilities and pros, strengths that some other guys don't have and weaknesses that other guys, may be their strength. So I just feel like we have a lot of competition in that room. We have a lot of guys that we feel have the opportunity to play this game for a long time. So we definitely like the clay that's in that room. We just got to continue to mold and we have to prove it on Saturdays. Nothing matters unless we go into Saturdays this fall and prove it week in and week out.
Looking back at last season for a little bit, when did you know that that 2024 group of Sun Devils was something special? And they had the capability of perhaps exceeding all expectations and making a run.
We knew going into the season that we had a formula to win, but it was a lot of unfamiliarity as far as some guys may have not been on winning programs. Some guys, may have not bought buy-in, all the way. I just feel like our test last year was going to come down to the close games in the Big 12 and if we're going to prevail or not. The fact that we started prevailing created a lot more belief. It created, even bigger chip on our shoulder. Obviously it's easy for the players to be motivated by the media and them counting us, last in the conference, but it's another thing to go prove it on Saturdays, week in and week out. So a lot of guys started to it created a lot of belief. It created a lot of buy-in in our culture at the right time. And, something that Coach Walker always says from, all of his experience being in college football, you necessarily don't choose your time chooses you. And we have to seize all of our opportunities. So last year we told our guys in the cornerback room that we're capable of anything, but we're entitled to nothing. And we got to prove it week in and week out. It's not about week 1, week 2, week 3. It's about the entire body of work. It's about week 1 through the end of the season. So our guys were hungry at every opportunity that we got. And now tasting that success last year, I can assure you that the players in the locker room are a lot more hungrier going into this season because we felt like we left opportunities out there.
Speaking of that hunger, when you look back at the totality of 2024, what impressed you the most about what your corners were able to do out there on the field?
Just being competitive. A lot of times going into games, especially at the start of the season, we probably had one of the more underproven on paper, unexperienced groups, on the entire Sun Devil roster. Think about from a game planning perspective, other teams on paper look like they outweighed the cornerback room at Arizona State. But the beauty about football is this game isn't played on paper. It's played on Saturdays and it's played snap after snap. And if we can go into every game being smart, being scrappy, being technical, then we're going to put ourselves in a position to win every football game that we step on the field. We feel like we have enough talent to walk on the field and play with anybody, but we're entitled to nothing, but we're capable of everything, and it's all about what we prove on Saturdays.
What were some of your favorite moments throughout the journey and the experience of going through that season and winning a Big 12 title, making a playoff run? What were some of the moments that you look back and cherish the most?
Yeah, Oklahoma State game I feel like was a game that was a big breakthrough for the roster in totality as far as where we could go as a team. Probably my most joyous moment was just seeing the players right before the ball was kicked off at the Big 12 championships in Jerry's world. It was a kind of an emotional moment. And when we were in the team auditorium at the playoff ceremony, to see the look on the players' face when Arizona #4 playing in the Peach Bowl against the University of Texas popped on that screen, and just to see the players go through their emotion, I felt like that was just a huge gift to witness from, as a coach, to see these guys, you know, being counted last. It was like a storybook ending for those guys. So those are some moments, you know, uh, were special to me. Obviously, playing Texas in the Peach Bowl since I used to be at Texas was a special moment. And just seeing our guys walk out there with swagger and confidence every Saturday, and we just played with so much energy, so much swagger, so much confidence. It was a great season.
From his introductory press conference, Kenny Dillingham made it clear that he wants to activate the Valley, and that's certainly what last year's team was able to do with sold out crowds and the hundreds of fans greeting you guys with the buses arriving and departing, and just getting the Valley a buzz again. What's been the most gratifying aspect for you to kind of just see that vision of activating the Valley really come to fruition?
Um, being at the Peach Bowl and just hearing the roar of the crowd and knowing that Texas travels well, but just to hear the presence of Arizona State um, in Atlanta was special. I believe Arizona State is a special place that should be a top choice and destination for a lot of kids as we move into this new era of college football. You get the best of both worlds. You get an unbelievable college experience, but then you get an opportunity to create a network for yourself in one of America's fastest growing, most futuristic cities. So I think it's a great generational decision for a lot of kids to want to play football for Arizona State, not just from a football standpoint, but just from the rest of your life standpoint.
And of course, you're still a relatively young coach here, and you head in. It was your third year as in an on-field role. How do you feel that you grew the most? Throughout that the course and of experiences of 2024.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to grow without actually doing it and having, the experience, and I feel like experience has been my best and greatest teacher to go through these 3 years is kind of just preparing me, and get me quickened and caught up to speed as soon as possible. For me to see the movies that I've seen from 3-9 to 11-3 is kind of like from being in the dark to like seeing the greatest heights and being in the light. It truly humbling to be here and to be afforded this opportunity by Coach Dillingham, and for us to have success so fast was very exciting, But we're even more optimistic and zealous for the future that we can build here, because I would consider last year us being ahead of schedule. We plan to build something very special here at Arizona State. So I wouldn't say that last year was the peak.
So let's talk a little bit of recruiting. Of course, you're a tremendous recruiter and have tremendous successes throughout your career. The Texas to Tempe pipeline has obviously been such a key factor. The makeup of this current 2026 class, especially, is a very heavily Texas flavor. Overall, right now, how would you describe this kind of the state of the Texas to Tempe pipeline heading into year three?
I mean, it's growing. I mean, if you've seen the movie Heavyweights from back in the day, it's almost like the buddy system. So a lot of guys are getting very excited about being recruited by Arizona State. And it's not like we just recruit the entire state of Texas. It's kind of nearly impossible. with where we are from a geographical region and where our other pipelines and areas where we have successfully recruited young, talented high school recruits. It's almost like we snipe the state of Texas. It's almost like, we're not just recruiting everybody in the state of Texas that is a 4 or 5 star talent. There are certain kids that we're looking for that fit our evaluation that we are convicted about, that we desire to allocate resources to go recruit those guys. It takes time. Time is very valuable in the way the college recruiting calendar is set up. You cannot chase unicorns. You just can't chase kids because they look good on the highlight tape. It's much more about the highlight tape at Arizona State. It's about the person. So you better make sure that you're bringing good quality human beings into the program. So a lot of times I go on the road and recruit and I was in love with the player, but I'm not in love with the person. So I got to move on. The Texas-to-Tempe thing is blown up because, you know, what they have experienced at Arizona State is really stamped and solidified what we're trying to build. It makes the distance, not matter anymore. When guys can come from the state of Texas and come on an official visit and interact with Jordan Crook and Xavier Alford and see that, dang, these guys are quite comfortable here at Arizona State. They guys have been at SEC programs and, blue blood programs, but they've kind of carved out a life for themselves and a role, and they've been afforded an opportunity they seem very grateful for here at Arizona State. This thing seems real. When I step away from these coaches, it's not used car salesman tactics. It's, hey man, here's the real deal. Like they're probably not recruiting everybody from Texas. You need to really pay attention that these coaches at Arizona State probably really value you. And when it comes to from a pipeline standpoint, we just signed a kid out of the portal that happened to play at the same high school that Xavier Alford played at. So you best assured that the buddy system, padded the stats a little bit for that kid. So, we're more comfortable with where we've had success at. There's certain areas in the state of Texas that we've had immense success, and we continue having success. And I think the Tempe deal is kind of on autopilot. It's not like we have to manufacture billboards. Every coach on our roster has a living testimony of a kid from the state of Texas, outside of Arroyo, which will change in January. But you know, we're not used salesmen. We actually have took care and well care of players that happen to be from the state of Texas.
So recruiting in the current era of college football and the portal era is obviously a little bit different than perhaps than it has been historically, and it's almost recruiting your own roster is a really crucial aspect of program building. And this year, so many guys chose to come back, and the roster retention for Arizona State was really remarkable. What were some of the keys to really kind of recruit that roster? Get those good guys to come back and obviously have so many familiar faces ready to make another title run.
Yeah, it starts before they sign up to Arizona State the first time. This is about a long lasting relationship. We're dating to get married. We're not dating to get laid. Excuse my French. So like when we meet these kids and we want to build and establish relationships, Coach Dillingham is as blunt as can be, as transparent as can be from the jump. You're not going to come use our program as a springboard. Those are the kind of people that we want. We want guys that want to be Sun Devils. We want guys that want to spread their roots in the greater Phoenix area. It's a lot of players. When you talk about retention, you ask our players in that locker room, our players in the two deep, where do they want to live after college? They will probably choose the greater Phoenix area because it's a testament to the experience that they've had in the 12 to 24 months that they've been here since Coach Dillingham's arrival. I mean, it's truly a special place, and we got a special formula, and it's a lot of places where our players win and are very comfortable here.
So the linebacker group has a pretty cool nickname in the Werewolves. Do the corners have anything similar that can rank up there?
Not yet. We flirted with stuff. We just not really ready to put nothing out there. We should, it should be some names brought out coming. Every player probably has their nickname, but we should come up with something. This season. Who knows?
So with a couple of obviously returning starters in there as well, how does that familiarity with the system, that experience, heading into this upcoming season, really kind of help bolster the entire room as a whole?
Yeah, because it allows you to understand that some of these guys are vets. Like Keith and Javen, we have a lot of trust in those guys. So it really gives us an opportunity to pour more into the young guys. This spring was kind of unique to where we got to make sure we took kind of some heat off of the guys that played the 14 game season, because spring ball came back up so swift and we didn't feel like we got those guys enough time to rest. We really got to pour into the youth of our roster. And it was very beneficial for a lot of the guys that weren't starters this spring ball. And maybe that's a new model moving forward. So when you have a lot of vets, when you're bringing back 10 starters on defense, you really can pour into some of the guys underneath the hood, so what you can kind of accelerate their development.
So I want to get your thoughts on some individual guys here as we run down. Starting off with Keith Abney, a guy who has grown so much each year that he's been here in the program, and just watching the practices, I thought he's in spring looked really like he's really taken another a jump up to another level after a really successful first year as a starter.
Yeah, he's just a savant. He has a high football IQ. He's a guy that is alignment sound on every play. He's a guy that's in the right place at the right time. He's a guy that we trust to where we were kind of moving him around in the defense. This spring we kind of experimented with a little bit. He's a guy that has always been a player, whether he's been a receiver, whether he's been returning punts, returning kicks, speed skating, whatever he's been a part of in life from that standpoint, he's been super competitive. So for us, it's almost like another coach on the field because he's somebody that's not only very athletic and has a lot of ability on the field, but he's smart and has a lot of competence in our scheme.
Moving on to Javen Robinson, obviously a couple of the biggest defensive plays and some crucial moments from last season. How do you see him kind of building off that first year as a starter as a Sun Devil heading into year two?
Yeah, Javen's done a really good job in the weight room this offseason, adding weight and mass to his frame. I feel like we'll get a stronger, more stout Javen Robinson this year. We'll kind of elevate his play, but he's a guy that has exceptional short space quickness. He can be sticky to the route tree. Definitely has ball skills because he played wide receiver in the past, and obviously had a really big interception and versus BYU and in the Texas game. So for those guys to be sophomores last year and have the years that they had to be juniors with another year to play, we're definitely excited about those guys. Obviously, he came from Washington State and was very familiar with our scheme, so he was able to kind of hit the ground running this time last year. So very excited about that tandem being healthy and being back this year for sure.
And Rodney Bimage, as you mentioned, got a little bit of time last year, but I thought really was one of the spring standouts overall. Where do you see him in the overall scheme, and what are your expectations for him in 2025?
Yeah, we love Rodney Bimage. Rodney Bimage is a guy that benefited from being with us the entire time last year, traveling every game, even though he was able to preserve his red shirt. I feel like Rodney is kind of like the prototypical guy that we want to recruit here at Arizona State moving forward. He's a guy that's very twitchy, has exceptional change of direction. He's tough, he has a boxing background. He's a guy that has so much endurance. You just see him in mat drills. He's the guy that's relentless. He's, to the final whistle, he has a lot of strain and plays with a lot of effort. What was exciting about him last year and throwing him into some games in the game situation, it's almost like he kind of rose to the occasion and elevated his game being under the lights. So, Rodney is a guy that we think the world of, and we're excited to see what his contribution can be for the Devils this fall.
And Plas Johnson, obviously, first off, how's he doing coming off the unfortunate injury? But even before the injury, it looked like he was really getting more comfortable, and it could be a guy that could contribute. So, and how do you feel him projects long term? When he's back next year after the injury.
Yeah, Pla's an exceptional athlete. the upside for Plash Johnson. I mean, the sky's the limit for what he can do. I feel like he made a lot of growth this spring as far as elevated his play. You know, got a lot of action with the ones this spring. You know, him getting healthy, him getting stronger, and putting some more weight on his frame. Heading into spring ball next year will do Plash just fine. We think the sky is the limit for Plash Johnson. Exceptional ball skills, obviously, as a wide receiver background, just very explosive athlete.
And then, as we wind down here, a couple of newcomers, Nyland Green, a guy that with a nice pedigree, has been around the, a couple of programs. What'd you see from him in spring?
Yeah, prototypical size for a corner. You know, it's kind of ideal for our scheme with Coach Ward. He's a guy that showed to be competitive. I think this guy is going to help us a lot this season. He's a guy that's very competitive at the catch point. He can run, jump, leap. Very pretty kid out there on the football field. Has played a lot of college football, so he brings in a wealth of experience. So we're definitely glad to have that guy on our roster.
And then freshman that caught my eye, Joseph Smith. You mentioned him a little bit earlier. Where do you see him kind of fitting in this year, and also his upside as his career continues?
Yeah, Joseph has a great chance to get on the field. Just got to continue to develop, continue to compete. This is a kid that was committed to us for probably 18 months at one point. You know, committed to us before the 3-9 season, and was able to kind of see us, complete the turnaround and go 11-3 and play in the Peach Bowl. So he's a guy that kind of bought in on our vision very early. And it's kind of funny how that works. A guy that buys in on our vision early, takes care of his stuff in the school to be an early enrollee, and comes in and is able to make a splash in the spring. It's I'm shocked that it works that way. But he's a very loyal kid. You can tell this kid loves football. Upside is through the roof. A lot of guys like him on the team and have been impressed with his ability this spring, and he's shown that he belongs.
And obviously, heading into this season, the bullseye is going to be on the back of the Sun Devils, and you guys are going to be the game circled on everybody's calendar as they look to take down the champs. What do you think should happen, or how do you see the mentality maybe shifting or evolving, or perhaps even doubling down as the team goes from hunter to hunted?
Yeah, I think last year it was all about us. It was all about us versus us playing our best game. It's us and the man in the mirror. I think there's nothing different this year. I think it's all about us controlling our destiny, and like I said earlier, we're capable of anything with this roster, but we're entitled to nothing. We got to prove it every Saturday, just like last year. We didn't live under the headlines, and we didn't have the media, all trying to solicit clicks to the Sun Devils. We'll have all that this year, and it can't be a distraction, but it's still about who we are and what we want to prove. We've earned that. We've earned the spotlight. We've earned to have clicks, and we've earned that national spotlight. But now it's a testament of what are we now, and if this is something that we can become accustomed to, then it has to be a standard, and we have to be able to rise to the occasion every Saturday.
Ultimately this fall with the sold out crowds at Mountain America Stadium, what do you hope those Sun Devil fans see from your group of corners in 2025?
Smart, scrappy, technical, a group that has standards, a group of players that aspire to play this game at the next level, a group that shows on several times during the game, that we're next level. We want to play with style points. We want to dominate. That's our mentality.
I'd like to thank Bryan for taking the time to talk with me for this episode. Make sure you are subscribed to Speak of the Devils on the podcast platform of your choice for more great sit-down series episodes all off-season long. And be sure to follow me on all things social media at BeatAny29.